I'm a member of the Fannin County Historical Commission. Today, Mr. E.L. Seals and I are going to talk about early day history of Fannin County. Mr. Seals, would you go back from the beginning, talking about your family and when they came to Texas?
Well, we lived in Tennessee, and I was born on the bank of the Clinch River in Tennessee, in a little old town called Xenophen, Xenophen. And my father was running a little store, and he was also constable. And let's see.
Some of your early day relatives, who were they? I believe you have a record back of some time.
Well, I have a record back to my grandfather's grandfather. Now, my grandfather's grandfather was Bailey Seals, born 1794. And his wife's name was Betty Mathis, born 1795. And they were in South Carolina, and they moved to Tennessee and settled on the Clinch River, and about that little town where I was born. And
When were you born, Mr. Seals?
I was born October 6, 1894, and I was born on about 400 yards from the Clinch River, and I was
Mr. Seals, when did you come to Fannin County?
We came to Fannin County in 1895.
1895, so you were just 1 year old when you came to Fannin County.
Yeah. I've heard my folks talk about boogers and haints back there in Tennessee, you know.
Yes.
I've heard the old folks sit around that back in them days and tell about haint stories and things like that back there.
Yes, that was a pretty prevalent thing during that time, wasn't it? People talked about things like that.
Well, my father said when he was a boy, he lived at a place, and said that every night they'd try to keep the door from sliding open. Daddy said he had set big back sticks, like you put in the back of your fireplace, against that door, and said along about 9 or 10 o'clock that door would fly open, that back stick would roll back across the floor.
Let me see now, you moved to Fannin County in 1895.
That's right.
And where did you first locate in Fannin County?
About halfway between Bonham and Bailey, where Joe Bolden had a farm, and he lived on the east side of the road and had 2 rent houses on the west side, and we lived in that south rent house 2 years.
Where did you go from there?
Well, we moved 2 miles west over to a place owned by Bill Barnett, and our neighbors was John Radden, Jim Radden, Bob Biggers, the father of Dr. Biggers.
Yes.
And that's where I saw my first windmill. Daddy went over to Bob Biggers to buy a cow, and I sat in the wagon and watched that windmill. That was sure with me. And I was just about 6 years old, I guess, something like that.
That was like a person today seeing them go up into space, wasn't it?
Yeah, it just bigger shows that seeing somebody go up in space now.
Yes. Where did you go from there? When you lived at this place near the Biggers, where did you move to from there?
Well, in the fall of 1899, Father bought a farm down close to Red River. It was in what they call the Bettis community. Old man John Bettis gave the land for the schoolhouse, and he gave the land for the cemetery. And that's where my father is buried. It's his day.
What cemetery is that?
Bettis Cemetery,
Betty's?
4 miles north of Ivanhoe.
Yes. Now, the New Hope Cemetery, where is it?
It's about 4 miles a little northeast of Ivanhoe. It's over by the Methodist Church.
Yes, right. Okay, if you'll just go ahead and talk about some of the things that happened during that time. By the way, your father was a Baptist preacher, is that right?
Yes, after he, might say after he grew up, he was a Baptist preacher and a farmer.
Yes.
And he didn't particularly try to pastor a church, but he worked in revival.
Yeah.
That was
right.
his calling.
Right. To be an evangelist.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about some of the things that happened down at Betty's. What about the school? When did you start the school?
Well, I started school in 1903, and I went to Bettis School the first year I was born. First year I went to school.
Yes. Was that a one-room school?
Yes, it's a small school, and I remember some of the folks that went to school there.
Okay, who were they?
There was about 4 of the English family, 3 or 4, and Lee Crawford and Elsie Crawford and Pinky Darnell and Curly Bumper, and just a whole lot of young folks around there.
Yes, right. Did you have a church in Bettis?
And my teacher's name, as I remember, is Georgie Harris.
Georgie Harris.
First teacher I ever had.
Yes. The church down there, was it a union church or just a non-denominational church where everybody came to church?
Well, at Ivanhoe,
At Betty's or...
there wasn't any church.
Oh, it was at Ivanhoe, I see. Okay, well, if you'll just tell us about the church there, the first early church you attended.
Well, when we moved down there wasn't any church in Ivanhoe. The Baptists and anybody want to hold a meeting would have a church at the schoolhouse. And about 1902, I believe, something like that, the Baptists built a church. And they mostly thought they run the Sunday school, they had Sunday school in the schoolhouse. And they bought an organ. And when they got the church done, they went and got their organ and took it to the church. Well, somebody took it back to the schoolhouse. Then somebody took it back to the church, and then somebody took it out on the breaks there behind the church and burned it.
Well, one of the interesting things about the early days are the doctors of that time. Do you remember who your family doctor was?
Well, I remember when I was 8 years old, we lived down in the Bettis community, and 4 miles from Ivanhoe, and Dr. Ward and I know Dr. Ward is Houston. Dr. Purtle and Dr. Alexander were at Ivanhoe. Well, I taken typhoid fever, and my father got Dr. Purtle to come, and he come in a buggy, drove a nice little bay pony to a buggy. And he made 31 trips while I had the typhoid fever. And he charged $1.50 a trip.
Quite different from what it is today.
And I remember that back then egg peddlers give 6 cents a dozen for eggs. And they were building a Bonham Country Club, and they built that with scrapers and mules. The people went and workmen went there and camped and made that food.
Do you remember the year that the Bonham Country Club was built, that the lake was built?
Well, let's see, that would have belonged about 19 and at about the time the church was built. That was built about 1902, best I remember.
About 1902. This town of Bettis, I suppose it was named after one of the early families that moved in that community.
Well, there wasn't no town in Bettis, just a settlement.
Just a community called Bettis.
Yeah, you know, you used to have schoolhouses out in the country.
Yes, right. But later you went to Ivanhoe. Did you go to school in Ivanhoe?
Well, in fall of 1903, Dad bought a farm a mile north of Ivanhoe. And then I went to school at Ivanhoe. And that was my second year of school. And
Do you remember your teacher's name?
Nanny Bell Madry.
Nanny Bell Madry. Yeah.
And there's a good-sized room with a curtain in it, and then I had a teacher and assistant. And later on, Mac Craig from Bonham, I believe he turned out to be a lawyer on the lake.
Yes.
And a lady named Morris, I believe she lived at Masco. They was teaching and they got married. They consolidated the
Yes. Right. You know, early day history about towns like Ivanhoe. When you first remember Ivanhoe, well, tell us about the stores that were there and what it was made up of.
Well, let's see, George had a two-story building with he had an Odd Fellows Hall over his store. And then Gay Parker just had the little one-room store. And Joe Allergy's store finally burned. Bishop had a store across the road, and I don't remember what all he sold, but I remember he sold coffins.
Yes, right.
And later on, they built other stores there.
Yes. Now, did they ever have a saloon in Ivanhoe?
Yes. When we moved down there, and we went through Ivanhoe, and was in a wagon with a sheet on it. Us kids peeped out looking at the town, you know.
Yes.
And we could see through the big window in front of the store, the saloon, and they had jugs and bottles, and just shelves were just full of jugs and bottles, best we could tell.
Yes.
I never did go over there.
I believe the man, what was the man's name that run the saloon?
George Taylor.
George Taylor. And you told me an interesting thing about your dad getting up a petition. Would you tell us about that?
Well, most of the people wanted to get rid of the saloon, so they had to get up a petition before they could get an election. And my father carried a petition to vote the saloon out of Ivanhoe. And it carried. And later, and then George Taylor then, he put in a store. And he told Dad later, said, I'd mad enough for you one time to shoot you. Said, you made a man out of me.
Well, that's real good. Do you think of any other town people in Ivanhoe, anything interesting incidents that happened?
Well, I was in Ivanhoe years later and on the store there myself.
Yes, right. But what I'm really thinking about now is early days when you were there.
Well, there's one thing I remember. I was just a little young kid, like, you know, and I'd go to school in the early morning when the ducks were going north in the spring. You could look across east of Ivanhoe on that flat land, and you could see droves of ducks that would equal any blackbird bunch you ever seen.
Yes.
They just thousands and thousands over there. They lied on that flat, wet land.
Yes.
And people didn't cultivate the flat land much them days. It's too wet.
Yes. They hunted for the sandier soil, I guess.
Well, I don't
farm.
know. I don't know what the ducks fed on there. It's so flat that the places maybe be a quarter of an acre covered in water when
Yes.
when it rained.
I imagine back that time there was a lot of forest, very little in cultivation.
Well, there wasn't any stock law down in their part. I don't know how big a territory it covered, but our cows run outside, and then about 8/10 of the land was outside, and people just turned the cattle out, and then they'd come home at night, for the feed.
Yes, right. You know, I've always been interested in what people did for family entertainment and community entertainment. What did you do back then? Did families get together for meetings, and what did you do?
Well, young folks got together sometimes and had their young folks meeting and sang, have a little country singing,
Yes,
and then they, once in a while, the people that went to dance would have a big dance,
yes.
and usually had a little to drink around on the outside.
I can remember back when I was a kid that we had a lot of ice cream suppers, and I can't remember what they called it, but the girls would bring a box with food in it, called it a box supper. Yes, right. Did you ever have anything like that?
Yeah, they had the box suppers, and they had their entertainment that like to do now, to get all kinds of get-togethers, the young folks did.
Did you have was there a theater of any kind in Ivanhoe?
No. They had a justice courthouse. I hadn't mentioned that.
Had a justice courthouse. I see. You told me one time about copperhead snakes. I don't recall exactly a clearing of land or something, but would you tell me about that?
Well, when we bought the land down there on the river, close to the river, the copperhead snakes were very thick. I remember our house was about 100 yards from the road, and between the road and the house, Dad and the older boys had unloaded some poles. And one night, me and LaVade and my sister, Mrs. Hickman, we started over to the road to turn the cows in. And we seen a snake, and we called my older brother, and he come around the hole. And we stood there and watched him cut the heads off of 7 copperheads, just scattered all around there.
Did people get bit by copperheads pretty often?
Well, people didn't seem to get bit by them, but there's all the time a dog was getting bit, and sometimes a cow.
Yes. One other thing that we talked about the other day is that your father worked for a man on what was later called the Morgan place. Who was the man who owned that before Morgan?
Well, Space, it belonged to Joe Hume when we moved down there.
Joe Hume.
And he lived in Austin.
I see.
And Dad kind of had he had Dad to kind of watch that shit for him. And so he'd come down once in a while, and he brought Dad a sack of green seed cotton green cotton seed.
Yes.
And from that one sack, that green cotton seed scattered all over the country. That people wanted it just for fun,
Yes, right.
And then Steve got it.
Who got it?
Steve.
Steve.
He had a sawmill. He put a sawmill in there.
I see.
I remember one day I went with my brother down. We had a little lease down the river there. And we passed that sawmill, and I remember what one of the men was saying. And he said, "Oh, you must have a live like a dog, or you couldn't saw such big log. It's sawing a big cottonwood tree about 4 foot through.
Yes. They sold a lot of lumber out of there, I guess.
Yeah. And one time we went down to that leaf, went around the fence, and we was over on the north side next to the river, and with a bad cloud coming up from south. And my brother said, "We better get out of here. That looks bad." And we started across the 20-acre block we had leased, and it was open out in the middle field where there wasn't any dead trees, and we run for that opening, and there was a cyclone hit up on the bluff, up high on the river bluff, and come over us, and we was right straight under it. And I looked up, and I seen cottonwood limbs and trees and just floating around in a circle up there. It cut a lot of cottonwood bark. You know, cottonwood had been dead about 2 years. That bark had come loose, and the air just full of that old cottonwood.
Well, that was quite a sight, wasn't it?
And the wind wasn't blowing too hard where we was standing. And just as we got in there, that old tall cottonwood come down, hit about 10 feet behind us.
Yeah. Those are scary times. You know, of course, you lived down there on the river, and just across the river was Oklahoma, or at that time was Indian Territory. Did you ever have any experience with Indians during your time down there?
Well, the Indians come up to bottom and get whiskey and get drunk on the road. Once in a while they'd kill one. I remember working the road down just north Ivanhoe about a mile one day, and graded out an Indian skull.
Yes.
And they were the bad Indian over across the river there, and everybody's afraid of it. And he had a 30-30 rifle, and he had killed 3 people. People would go over in at bottom, you know, it was all outside then, practically.
Yes.
And those big Mustang grapes could cover up the trees and spots down over there. And some people wouldn't go over there on account of that Indian get those grapes.
Yes. Well,
And another little old, it was a joke. Some man prophesied that a certain day Texas was going to sink. And so the Mustang grapes was ripe, and there's a lot of folks I knew went to Oklahoma to pick grapes that day.
yes, afraid it would really sink.
I remember Dad said they'd have a time of breaking a lot up and down the River as crooked as it is.
Yeah. Breaking off where Texas would sink and Oklahoma
He
wouldn't.
said didn't see how it could break without breaking off part of Oklahoma.
Yes, right. How did you get your food during that time? Did you grow a lot of the food that you ate and grow your hogs and your cattle for meat?
Yes. Along about that time, we had, near where we lived, we had orchards. We had 10 acres in apples on that first place we bought, and I had 6 acres of peaches. And we'd can fruit and dry fruit, but can all we could afford to. You couldn't afford too much back in the day.
Yes.
And so we'd dry their fruit and would take their apples, a lot of them over to Captain Dupree's. He had a cider mill, and we'd grind those apples up in about 25-30 gallons of vinegar, you know.
Yes.
And Captain Dupree, he'd get the pumice for use in milk. Feed his hog.
Yes.
When we moved up North Ivanhoe, we lived adjoining farms to Captain Dupree. And me and my 2 older brothers, William and Andy, and Brian and Frank, and let's see, Martin King, Malcolm King. Used to be a bunch go possum hunting together.
Yes.
We made lots of possum hunts back in days. Of course, we had to skin them possums to sell high to get a little money.
Yes. Well, I know a lot of interesting things happened back during that time, and these are some of the things that younger people today really enjoy hearing about. Now, later in your life, you bought the store at Ivanhoe. Who did you buy the store from?
I brought it from, I believe it was initial J.W. Carver. And I was living at Rivera, Texas at that time, and my cousin Jack Seals, his boy, that run the store at South Maid, he brought his clerk and come down and invoiced the store on Sunday. And they called me and sent me a telegram that the trade was made. My dad helped with it. And so
you came back and
it took me, it was a week before I got up here, and on the way up I met Carver. I met about 3 old cars in the line.
yes.
And I was off fixing the flat. And I told my wife, I says, I bet that was a Carver. And I asked about his outfit, and sure enough it was. It was about Central Texas we passed. There's a lot of robbing going up and down in that part of the country for that time. I was laying there, had a shotgun laying by me, out fixing the flat just before night.
Yes. Where were you now?
It was down in Central Texas somewhere. I don't remember exactly where.
When did you buy the store in Ivanhoe?
I believe it was in May 1932.
1932. That was back during Depression time, wasn't it? And how long did you run that store?
Well, I bought it in 1932 and sold out in 43.
Yeah.
Sold to the man across the street. Sold Ernest Parker.
Yeah, Ernest Parker. My dad was an early day merchant, and I've heard him tell a lot of interesting things that happened during the early days while he was a merchant. Do you think of some funny instance or different things that happened during the time you were running the store?
Well, I hate to tell this on Ivanhoe, but along about that time they had more booze than they know what to do with it.
Yes. Bootleggers, were there moonshiners making whiskey?
Yes. And I saw a truck loaded with fruit jars, a cattle truck loaded with fruit jars, 2/3 full, standing in Ivanhoe a half a day. And the fruit jars are all full. It's the bootleggers.
Yes, right.
And I thought as high as 25 people drunk there after night. They'd be together in after night and get drunk, and I'd lock up.
Yes, lock up and go home.
Well, I lived in the back of the store.
Oh, you did?
All I had to do was lock the front and back door, and I was at home.
Well, I understand that you had some physical problems, got sick while you were running the store and had to sell out.
Well, I had stomach ulcers. That's what put me out of business. And I sold the store. And let's see.
I think you have a record there of after you sold the store, what you did up to now. So would you just tell us what happened to you after you sold the store and where you live?
Well, I sold the store and I kept the resident for a week. And during that time I went to Denison and bought a 16-foot travel trailer. And when my week was up, that was 1st of November 1943, I loaded that little junk in my car and went to Senton, Texas. Went to Kingsville. And they wanted to go back work on the railroad where I used to work some, and so I told them, I said, I'm not able to do a day's work. Well, I said, we've got jobs all kinds. I said, got some that ain't no work too hardly. I said, would you go as far as Senton? I said, I'd go to Senton, but I wouldn't want to go no further east.
Yeah, Senton's way down South Texas, isn't it?
Yes. Well, we went down that Senton, and my ulcers got worse, and I transferred to Kingsville Depot, and to do the chores there, and I didn't get any better. So my youngest boy, Forrest Seals, he was in the Army camp out at Wichita Falls, and of course he's going to leave in a few days, and we want to see him, and so I just quit my job, and I build out the stuff for people, and I just bailed out part of my stuff to Bonham and got in my car and went to Wichita Falls.
Yes.
Stayed 3 days and rented a cabin there, and the boy got a weekend pass and come stayed with us. And we had a nice visit, and then he went on, and he landed in North Africa, Tripoli in Libya. And at that time, my other boy was in the Japanese country. They were just opposite sides of the earth from each other.
Right.
And Richard was in the Army camp just a little later. And he never did go across. He never did go across. The war ended, and he didn't have to go over that.
Yeah. How many children do you and your wife have?
Well, we had 3. About a month and a half ago, my oldest boy had passed away, Richard. And I have Vernon's Odessa and Forrest here in Bonham.
You know, Mr. Seals, it's been real interesting to hear you talk about early day in Fannin County. This kind of a thing is always interesting to me, and I know that it's interesting to a lot of other people. And of course, our purpose in taping this talk is so that young people that would like to know about what's happened down at Ivanhoe or about Bettis, the community of Bettis, that they can play this tape and hear of somebody's early day experiences down there.
Well, I didn't tell you about my getting married.
No, that's right.
Dad moved to DeQueen, Arkansas, and I was about 20 years old. And I went to school with the country school there 1 year after I went out there, and me and another girl, we got to thinking a lot of each other during that school year. And the next year, neither one of us went to school, but along September the 16th, 1914, we got married.
Yes.
And we rented the farm back in Texas and come back to Fannin County. And next 16th of September, we'll be married 70 years. And 6th of next October, I'll be 90.
Yes. You've had a lot of interesting experiences over a period of years. It's been real good talking with you, Mr. Seals, and I know that other people are going to enjoy hearing this talk, and so I want to thank you for giving us this information.